I will not accept a movie I do not deserve. Welcome back to Movies Are So Back, the YouTube movie review channel where I, Ethan Simmie, ask the question, are movies so back? MaXXXine is finally here. This is Ty West's follow-up to X and Pearl, both pretty revered A24 horror, I would say instant classics, but does MaXXXine reach the height of the previous two films? This is my spoiler-free review of the film. I just got out of the movie like literally 35 minutes ago, so I'm fresh. These takes are hot, they are unprepared, they are quite honestly going to be scathing because the movie wasn't good. The movie wasn't very good, guys. I walked out of the theater and I just thought, well, that wasn't very good, now was it? I would probably say this is the biggest disappointment of 2024 in terms of movies so far, in terms of where my expectations were and then where the reality is, because I was excited for MaXXXine, as I feel like a lot of people were. It's Mia Goth back doing horror in 1980s Hollywood. What's not to love about that? And it just fell supremely flat for me. If you're unaware of the premise of MaXXXine, it is set in 1980s Hollywood. It has Mia Goth returning in the titular role of Maxine Minx, the now successful adult movie star who is trying to break into Hollywood, and she finally catches her big break. Now, if I remember the year that flashed really big on the screen in the beginning of the movie correctly, this movie is set in 1985. That would make it 6 years after the events of X. So I think that's important to keep in mind when breaking down this movie, when understanding what the events of X have to do with Maxine Minx as a character, her mental, her psyche, and the actions she chooses to take in this movie. Now, I'm not going to spoil any of this movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, you do not need to worry. Maybe I'll do a spoiler-filled review at some point in time to break down really the last 20 minutes of the movie, but I do think it's important to keep in mind that this movie does follow a string of murders taking place around Hollywood committed by this ominous figure known as the Night Stalker, and how Maxine Minx's role in those murders plays out. That's what I'll say about that. That really is what the movie is about. It's kind of crazy how many things about this movie line up to be things that I would like, honestly. And so I'm really surprised that I didn't like this movie. It's set in 1980s Hollywood. That is kind of a shoo-in for me, at least personally, of like, hey, you're really gonna like this movie. It's got Mia Goth returning to a world in which she is very good in. In X, she's fantastic. In Pearl, she's even better. Where's my Pearl hive? I know you guys are out there. Shout out to Pearl. I do have a Pearl tattoo for a reason. And I just feel like those two elements, along with some of the other thematic explorations that this movie chooses to embark on, fall kind of ridiculously flat. Like scarily flat. At least for me personally. It's just like nothing about what the movie was trying to accomplish really worked at all for me. Starting with Mia Goth and honestly most of the cast, they all felt really underutilized. It felt like there could have been something really special about the blending of all of these different people and personalities and star powers, and it just didn't really do that at all. Maybe except for Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon plays a very good sleazy cop. So Kevin Bacon, you win the gold star for this movie, although the bar is set quite low. Mia Goth is not given any material like Pearl or even like X, and I feel like she was just remarkably subdued in this movie, which is kind of the antithesis of what this movie really is about. It's about MaXXXine. Why are we not allowing Mia Goth to be MaXXXine, be the movie star that she is and she wants so desperately to be? The other huge miss for me was the incredibly on-the-nose thematic elements. The movie revolves around this idea that Hollywood is kind of a soul-sucking cult. You have to really sell yourself and give yourself over to terrible things in order to succeed, in order to be a star. And I like that idea. I like that in theory. I like it a lot, and I think it can structure a really successful movie, especially something like this, which is so weird that it just didn't work at all. Like, it felt way too on the nose. It felt way too self-aware, and it kept doing it. Like, it kept calling it back, and the script kept saying these little nods and hat raises here and there to like, hey, Hollywood's a bad place. Look what you have to do to be a star. And it's like, I got it. I understood. You didn't have to continually stoop down the thematic elements to like what felt like a very first or second grade reading level type situation, and bundle it in a nice package. I thought it would have been much more successful as a very ominous theme of like, hey, this place is really dark and here's what you have to do to succeed. And it might involve some crazy murders and killings and really strange people. That sounds like a win to me, and it really veered off of that path for some reason. The final act basically didn't work for me at all. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about it, but if you've seen it, you might have a hunch as to why. There are some positives to the film as a whole. Classic horror fans are going to be a big fan of a lot of the practical effects and a lot of the homages. Again, much in the same vein of X, Ty West has this adoration and admiration for Psycho and for Hitchcock and for what he has done for the horror genre. There's several callbacks to that and really fun stuff there. So like that's a small little glimmer of hope of Ty West sticking to something that he holds near and dear to his heart that helped kind of guide this franchise to this point. But again, like it just felt like MaXXXine, a movie that quite honestly feels like A24 poured the most amount of marketing dollars into against like X or Pearl. They wanted MaXXXine to be very successful. And the idea of MaXXXine is like Hollywood's a bad place and you shouldn't do the things that Hollywood wants you to do to get a movie made. But like, that's what happened. That's what happened to Ty West. That's what happened to MaXXXine. And unfortunately, that's what happened to this franchise. I feel like it's a significant, just a truly significant drop off from Pearl, even from X. Both movies that I rewatched last night in preparation for MaXXXine because I was like, let's do the Holy Trinity. Let's do the trifecta. Let's enjoy every ounce of this franchise. And MaXXXine just absolutely does not bring home this Ty West horror A24 franchise at all. I was able to catch the film on 35 millimeters, so that is another like little glimmer of hope of this experience, is that it looked really, really good on film and really does kind of embody the vibe of what the film is going for. So if you have the chance to check it out on film, if the cinema is screening it on a 35 millimeter film, I suggest you go check out that version instead of a digital. Is it worth it? I'd still say no. Unfortunately, I'd still say no. I'm a big A24 guy. I'm a big Ty West fan with these films, and it just really kind of isn't worth it. It's just, unfortunately, a very poor film. I hate to say it, guys, but on the movies are so back scale, movies are not so back. It's quite low on the scale, to be honest. And this was supposed to be the one. This was the chosen one.
You were the chosen one.
This was going to be one of the better movies of the year, and it's not. It's supremely disappointing. Let me know if you want me to do a spoiler-filled review of MaXXXine, really the end of MaXXXine, because there are things that I've seen, actions that were taken, decisions that were made in the film that I feel quite negatively about, and I want to talk about them. I want to get them out of my system and discuss them, because they're quite poor decisions in general. If you're interested in a more long-winded, spoiler-filled conversation, you can check out my podcast, 24 Minutes of A24. We're going to dedicate an entire episode to talking about MaXXXine in a spoiler-filled fashion, along with X and Pearl. Probably going to rank those movies as well and talk about if this trilogy is going to go down as one of the great horror trilogies of modern-day cinema, or if MaXXXine kind of ruined that trajectory. Until next time, I will not watch movies that I do not deserve.